activate among the members of the quadruple helix, meaning between companies, NGOs, public authorities, and research bodies, in order to make the green growth topic and objective advance. And why do we need this type of networks and relations? And I think that yesterday presentations that we had in the morning and also during the daytime, they gave us enough reasons and arguments to see that if we want to make green growth advance, especially in the Med area, we will need to work together. And we'll need to work together because it's not only about environment and about protecting what is around us, but we are dealing also with social and economic issues. So green growth is first of all a complex thematic. We need also to work together because we have seen that when speaking about green growth, especially in the Med area, we are also interacting a lot with the coastal areas and also with the maritime areas where the urban population is developing quite a lot, and we are also intervening in the urban planning. So some other things that are adding to this general green growth thematic. We are also, we need to work together because we are working in an area, in the Med area, that part of it belongs to the EU, a part of it is not belonging to the EU. So it's quite difficult to see how we can build together a policy that is able to tackle this entire region also from a political viewpoint. So in this sense, we thought it would be very useful for the members of our community to see what is the viewpoint of different type of actors, of NGOs, of companies, large and small companies, of research institutions, and see what kind of synergies they can put on the table in order to make this area, this domain of green growth advance. I won't be speaking too much now at the beginning because one of our participants at the roundtable, Mr. Matteo Caroli, will need to leave. So I would prefer to pass the floor to him, and so that he can speak to us about the research opportunities in the green growth in the Med area. And afterwards, I'll invite you, if you'll have specific questions for him, to ask him because he will need to leave. And after, we'll give the floor to the other intervenants. So, Matteo, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I'm very sorry because I have to leave very early, so after my brief speech, if you have any question, I will be very pleased to answer, but I'm sorry also for the other speakers, I can not remain. Well, first of all, as you have kindly said, I'm a professor at the Lewis Business School, so my considerations will be from the point of view of a person involved in research in the managerial field, which is not the only area involved in developing research analysis and for green growth. I think that one key area is the technological one, so it would be, I would underline it, it would be also very much interesting to understand which are the new trends in research, in theoretical research, as well as in applied research, in engineer, in physics, for example, in other fields. From my point of view, from the point of view of the field in which I'm usually involved, management, I think that the key issue in research is understanding how to create value out of environmental sustainability, which means first of all understanding which might be new productive system, because already now, but more and more in the future, companies will have to face one key problem, which is increasing productivity. That's, for example, very clear in the food industry, but it's also clear in many other manufacturing industries. So increasing productivity and at the same time improving the environmental footprint of production. How to create value means basically requires understanding how to innovate what we call the business models of companies. So how companies are able to create economic value, which is, all of us agree about that, I think, which is important, but at the same time, it will be important, and that's why it's necessary to find new business model to create environmental and social value. I would like to underline the relevance of facing environmental problems together with social ones. It's clear the connections, but in some cases there might be also some contradictions. A new business model exploiting basically three general key trends that we can notice in many industries, which is, of course, digitalization, so how to exploit the digital technologies in order to create value and to improve the environmental footprint and create social value. All the wide range of technologies regarding the IoT and big data management. I think that these three technologies, these three trends, which have also organizational impact, have to be deeply understood in order to understand for their impact on the business models. Also, I think that one other area of research is understanding how to make the environmental impact and the improvement of environmental impact way to create competitive advantage. Because companies have this key problem, we cannot forget that, and it's not very clear, for example, it's not very clear how to improve the perceived value by the customers, by the market, which comes from the better environmental characteristics of a certain product or of a certain service. So I think that also the marketing area is involved, understanding a new marketing tool in order to make the value coming from environmental improvements a perceived value by the customers. I think, and this is the last, well, also I think companies are more and more involved in balancing profit maximization with other objectives, like, again, the environmental impact. So it's also important to understand how to make it, the value of this, how to make clear to the financial side. We know that there are more and more financial funds which tend to invest in companies which have a positive and relevant environmental impact, which create what the so-called shared value. But at the same time, there are other investors which have not such an attitude yet. So it's important also to find ways to communicate with the whole financial community in order to make them understand the relevance of a positive environmental impact. You know, it's different ways of managing, different ways of developing strategies, different ways of organizing the companies, and so, I mean, people like us, I mean, in the managerial fields, it's important to find and to understand which might be the new tools and the new approaches which companies might develop in order to give proper answers to the new challenges. I think that also, it's the last consideration I would like to develop. It's also important to have a not new, but I mean a clear methodological approach. From my point of view, it's more and more important to have a very empirical approach to research. So in this field, I mean, again, in the managerial field, it's important to understand, to develop a case-based analysis. And from this point of view, it's very important to develop a network of different partners in different countries, probably not only in Europe, even if, of course, our program is a European program, but I think it's, for example, it's also very interesting to understand these issues, looking for new business models in the emerging countries. Anyway, so to study the concrete realities, the concrete business cases, and also to find what we might call the best practices in order to understand how to transfer good practices developed in some kind of environment, in some countries, in some geographies, in other countries. From this point of view, I think that a specific area which is particularly interesting is the area of the startupping. So to understand how new entrepreneurs starts new businesses based since the beginning in their DNA, we might say, on the issue of creating, on the objective of creating environmental value. I think, and this is really my last point, I think that our aim in researching should be producing knowledge which really has an impact on the public opinion and on the policy makers from one side, and which really gives the entrepreneurs, the managers, some concrete guidelines for their strategic and managerial activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Caroli, and I think you reached some important points with your presentation, especially related to the challenges that the green growth brings into the companies. We will have the opportunity to see the perspective of some large companies which are present here today, but big challenges remain, especially for the SMEs and the startups, because it's clear that if they want to integrate the opportunities of green growth in their businesses, they will need to have new type of competencies, and it's clear that they cannot develop them by themselves. And yesterday, all the intervenants in the morning and also in the afternoon sessions, they were speaking all the time about partnership, alliances, co-creation, working together, networking, because we are facing challenges that we cannot exploit by ourselves. So and the role of the research, indeed, in institutions in this sense, is to provide important tools and concrete messages to public authorities, and to know how they can support the companies to integrate these challenges. And we'll have the chance to speak about public authorities immediately with Peter from ICLEI. But before that, perhaps if there are some comments or questions that you would like to address directly to Mr. Caroli before he leaves, because he will soon he won't be with us. If not, Gaetano perhaps can answer to them afterwards. It will be the case. Yeah? You have one, Dimitri?
And we are partner in the Sinji project. I would like to add up something to what Anna Maria said before. How do you convince companies, the small SMEs, to invest in green? Green is always more expensive. Even if it's in the same money, they don't invest. What do you propose to the SMEs that approach you at the university?
Yes, thank you. This is a very good question, because it's when I said provide entrepreneurs with some good guidelines, it's exactly because, I'll say that first of all, it's a general issue in sustainability. We need to make them understand the relevance of long-term approach, which requires to strengthen their financial capabilities, because you can develop long-term strategies, and so the environmental strategy only if you have financial resources provided, and you can. But usually, you know, small business companies, which in most cases are family businesses, tend to have this long-term approach. Second issue is, I think, very important is to make them understand that big companies are more and more going in this direction. Big companies usually are the key clients of the small suppliers. And so I think that it means that, I mean, the overall trend of the industry where they compete are getting this kind of approach. And so they have to change in order to remain competitive.
Yes, I agree. And one small comment, I completely agree with you. And the big companies create the market. And for example, IKEA now has committed themselves that 2020 all products will be 100% recyclable, and Procter & Gamble will follow, and all the big companies. So yes, I agree. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Professor Caroli. And if we got some other question from our
Sorry again, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll give the mic to Peter. We'll also put the presentation, and we'll enter a little bit in the area of public authorities and what could be their role in promoting green growth and in developing networks of actors that are putting in practice green growth actions. You can either use that one.
Okay. This one. Good morning, everybody. While I'm talking about the role of public authorities and green growth, and I've been living now and working for 10 years in Brussels. Brussels is not only the capital of Europe, but also the capital of buzzwords. So when I started, it was all about green products, green public procurement. Then after some while, it was about innovation, innovative products, innovative production. Then came the time of smart cities, smart production. And now the last trend is the circular. But I think when we talk about green growth, there is an agreement that they're all connected, they all go in one direction, and there is no need to discuss is it now more green or more social or more... It complies all the different aspects like low emission, energy efficient, renewables, inclusive, smart, environmentally friendly, innovative. This is all part of the green growth. But I must say I particularly like the circular, because circular, talking about green, you know, when you talk about green, a word related to it is greenwashing, and there is always the risk that when people talk too much about green growth, because you can grow, but economically there are the limits that we know in terms of material. So I like very much this circular economy, because this is really where the loops are closed, the material loops, and that's the problem that we are facing today, that the materials are limited. How can we still grow? And eventually circular economy is the economy that is closest to nature. I like this picture because it's really, you know, it shows a bit a circle. Because talking about public procurement, and today we are at the not only the capital, but it's really the point to be on procurement. Green public procurement, which is the purchasing of products and services in a city, is not necessarily innovative. You know, procuring in a Mensa 100% organic is nothing innovative. On the other hand, innovative procurement does not necessarily lead to sustainability. It could be very resource efficient, resource intensive. It could consume a lot of water. So think about also smart cities. Eventually, where do these resources come from? In Europe, we are not so resilient. Most of the materials come from outside of Europe. So I like it, the circular, it's somehow where these different streams come together. Now, if you look at the recent, well, from 2011, a UNEP Green Economy report, you see the different areas where in private-public investment can be done, and you see that many are related to a public authority, what they purchase, in terms of agriculture, where the food comes from, the water, the sustainable water managed, forests. Many cities have forests. There's now a big conference on urban forests. It's about wood and timber, renewable energy, buildings, waste, transport, tourism. And there is another more recent report of the OECD that talks also exactly about this topic. You see here I just copy-pasted this chapter about the different roles that the public sector can have. It's about promoting collaboration. We heard this in the morning, the different partnerships. I think partnerships are key, but it's about the politics also to create the right enabling environment. Because how do you partner? Earlier we talked about, for instance, sustainable food procurement. And I talked to procurers in some provinces. They say, yes, the politicians tell us, try to get the food for the Mensas from the local farmers, but it's not that easy then from a procurer, because a procurer is a bit of a purchaser is a bit of an endangered species. You're there in your room, you shouldn't spend too much, you should do your GPP immediately, and you should deliver in terms of results. And it's not easy because, I mean, eventually to make it happen, it's a longer process. And then probably things change after 5 years, new elections. So it's really about having a strategy in a long term, and it's really about working together. And here, I think when we talk about innovation, usually when in Brussels, I'm in an event where innovation is part of the title. It's half of the room is Dutch people. I really feel like in the Netherlands, I don't know why, it's all the good practice example, most of them come from Denmark, from the Netherlands. Innovation in all ways, for instance, they launched in terms of circular economy, which is quite recent, especially circular procurement. It's a very recent, it's in the infant stage. But there again, they developed these green deals where really many businesses, public authorities and the citizens, organizations work together to reach green deals, to make a circle in the terms of procurement, to look beyond, because you know that the classical city today is like the material goes in one side and the linear process and waste goes on the other. But how to make a circle that there is no more waste, that the waste is the material of the future, that should be the aim. Therefore, the important thing is always it's easy, but what we see, and we do, for instance, for the Community, we worked for many years for the European Commission, DG Environment, we collect good practice examples from all around Europe. And on DG Environment, on the website, you also find criteria for all products. And what we see in all these good practice examples, they always have certain things in common. On one hand, the strategy, like Barcelona, Kolding, Copenhagen. These are all cities that, but also Cremona, you know, these are all cities that started at a certain stage to say, okay, we want a strategy on, for instance, green public procurement. We want in this case, engage in green growth, and we think procurement is a key tool, and then they developed it. And that's important. You know that it's long term. I specifically wrote election resistant because that's what I often see. You know, in some countries, once you have a strategy and there is the council who took a decision, this strategy is ongoing. In other countries, we suddenly hear there have been election, the color of the party changed, and suddenly it all starts new and it all finishes, and then you have, well, to wait a few years till it. So this, how to have a long-term strategy. And then it always needs this human factor, the lead. In all good practice examples, eventually we see a mayor who is really pushing for it. We see the head of the department, a local agenda group, someone who leads it over the years. The partnering, we said, inclusive is becoming more and more important. Especially you all know about this smart cities program, lots of money going into it, being smart in terms of buildings, in terms of transport, in terms of IT. But there again, first it seemed more technology driven. Now I was in Budapest at a big conference, and all I heard is all the time, we need to be more citizen focused. We need to involve the citizens. So you cannot just build the infrastructure and have a big smart cities and be proud of it, but it's also, you need the ownership of the citizens, so this inclusiveness. And then the local, very important. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I organized a conference in Leuven, and it was all about how to finance local energy and climate action. And I liked very much this, one of the speakers there is very good in terms of involving citizens that do not only consume electricity and pay a lot of money and say, okay, energy got more expensive, what can we do? No, together the citizens, they said, we want to produce our own energy. They put up windmills, they save much more money, they have their own renewable energy, they pay less, and they even give jobs. And these energy cooperatives are growing. And therefore I wrote this remunicipalization, because this is something coming up, Turin, Paris, Berlin, where citizens say, we want that the services that lead eventually also to green growth, like water, energy, etc., they are kept in the cities. Because eventually if a company, big company from outside Italy or outside manage your water, your electricity, the value, the added value goes also to this company. But the idea of green growth for me is then really, if you, a citizens invest or a city, this value can be invested again in the city for other projects that are related to your green growth. So it's really important to have this ownership on the services. Just as I took out, you remember I showed you the chapter on what the role of public authorities, and obviously as a market player, public procurement, green public procurement is key. Just brought this example of Vienna because, well, Italy is an exception because usually green public procurement is a voluntary tool in Europe. In Italy it's obligatory. We still have to work on monitoring and controlling, but the fact is it's there. And also in Vienna, which is after all a big city and the capital city, they started also already 15 years or 20 years ago saying, okay, green public procurement is for us key in terms of green growth. Let's all work together. 120 people who were already working in the municipality, they said, let's develop green criteria for the different products that we purchase. And then the top administrative person said, okay, now that we have the catalogs, the criteria, let's also use these criteria. So there was the obligation to use them. And that's how they changed. But they also worked together with the businesses. They said, look, we want to involve in green public procurement. So also the businesses, please, hotels, we want to be a green city. We want to, how can you work with us? And they had this eco-business plan. And also in terms of transport. And they saved amazingly over 10 million per year, 130,000 tons of CO2. So it's really a good practice. And as you know, Vienna ranks usually always highest in the UN ranking of the cities with the highest life quality, and also in terms of economic terms, well-being. So I think it's a good example what the cities can do, and it's and of the long-term strategy and about the partnering, etc. Just to finish off from my side, ICLEI is an international European organization of cities that are committed to sustainable urban development. We work on all topics of urban sustainability, transport, procurement, water management, climate mitigation, adaptation, you name it. And I'm running the Brussels office, and we have a team working on sustainable public procurement for 20 years, and particularly I wanted to tell you about this Procura Plus network, which is a European network of cities. We also have different cities here in Italy, like Cremona, Anci Liguria, Roma. And cities all around Europe who believe that public procurement, sustainable public procurement, can be a key instrument for green growth, for contributing to sustainable urban development. And we meet once a year, so if you want to become part of it as a city, please contact me or contact ICLEI or Ecosistemi in order they are the national partner. Our next seminar is in Oslo on the 21st of March next year, and we also organize every 3 years what is probably the largest event on sustainable public procurement to discuss with experts from the European Commission, from companies, with other cities. What are good practice examples? What are the difficulties? How to move forwards? Because the aim is really to create a strong movement of cities who use public purchasing as a tool to develop growth. Yeah, just another resource where you can find a lot of information it's the Sustainable Procurement Resource Center if you Google it. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. I propose you that you keep your comments and suggestions after all the interventions. But it's clear that you tackled a lot of issues concerning the way that public authorities can encourage this logic of partnership and of networking in order to promote green growth. And I look forward to see the comments of our colleagues. But before that, I'll pass the floor to Vesna to see complementarily what could be the role of the NGOs, the non-profit sector, even citizens, in advancing the green growth issue, and if they can play a role in this logic of networking and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to welcome all of the participants in this session. I am very pleased to be here. Today my talk was actually directed towards the green growth competitiveness, especially with the perspective and role of non-for-profit organizations. I would, in the first few slides, give a short introduction of who actually we are. As Anna already introduced me, I'm Vesna Žepič Bogataj. I'm coming from Tecos. Tecos is a Slovenian tool and die development center. It's located in Slovenia, in city Celje. And it's actually a private non-for-profit R&D center founded in more than 20 years ago on the initiative of Slovenian tool and die and mold making industry. So we were founded with a special purpose, so to represent the voice of the small to medium-sized companies, especially with this sector of mold making industry. And we have been founded by 3 governmental authorities, Government of Republic of Slovenia, then Municipality of Celje, and Industrial Line Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. Just in short, we want to be the strategical R&D partner, mainly to metal plastic production companies. We want to give the support and especially in research and development for the innovative plastic products, then smart molds, advanced processing technology development, and actually we want to be the factor of intermediate role to put the practice or theoretical knowledge into industrial practice. We want to rationalize the SME's business portfolio by the means of joint R&D infrastructure, which is very important, I think, in the scope of the green growth. And of course, we are offering some engineering services also with stream to the green growth. We are co-creating with them the products with the green innovation thesis, to really complete with them the higher added value of their selling marketing products at the end. And besides our R&D core or pillar, we are also industrial associations. So we are currently connecting around 70 members, mainly SMEs, but also large companies. So we have the really good overview of what the industry is streamed to, or what the industry wants. And we are organizing some special trainings for them, because I think it is very important and critical factor to put it in forward. The competence skills, if you want to expand the greenest of the companies, they have to have the appropriate working labor. So it is a critical thing of the non-for-profit organization, as our R&D institutions, centers, also some technological parks, and also universities, is to put the practical knowledge, actually, to the industrial production lines. So we want to highlight the key elements of putting the research development services on the pilot production lines and then afterward to be ready to be integrated into the industry. So first of all, for green competitiveness, you would probably need good basic of the governmental strategies. So that is why I am like putting forward the importance of the favorable environment for such of initiatives. And especially for Slovenia, in Slovenia, actually, the smart specialization strategy was accepted and confirmed from Brussels in 2015. And it was actually co-created with industry. So every company has a possibility to affect or imply of what they want to go in which direction. So I think this is was very good approach. So to co-create the thematic scopes of the our strategy, specialization strategy, together with the industry. And more importantly, the development investments are putting forward for about like 750 million euros per year. So this gives us a lot of new opportunities to affect really the industrial streams where in which directions they are want to be focused. And I would agree with my previous speakers that the larger companies are very much aligned with the greenest and they are already implementing these new business models. And of course, the tier suppliers, which we have a lot in Slovenia, are like following them because they have to if they want to be in their supply chain. So developing really new products and services are nowadays really common, but of course highly dependent on the company status. So the company size, the tier suppliers as mentioned previously, and the decision directions made by original equipment manufacturers. So the green growth scale up is really hampered also with a lack of success. With the lack of access to research and technology support. So I think it's very important to create some common hubs where industry can turn to when they have the possibilities to develop the prototype green products just to test it and afterwards introduce it into the industrial practice. And I'm very afraid that a large pool of innovative ideas in this way really remains untapped, and the opportunity to build some sustainable economy is being really missed. So enabling factors and the barriers, yes, the companies are making quite significant contributions to the green economy. Of course, without the companies, research organizations, non-for-profit organizations would not exist because it is all aligned to help them to build the economy of the countries on the European level and beyond. And we have the possibilities to help them, to offer them some innovative perspectives, trends that are currently available, and to really put in the practice the green economic development. Then the third thing, there is a number of internal operational challenges for SMEs. And as I mentioned before, they need the appropriate skilled labor. So I think this is the thing that we have to be very aware of. So to go green, they have to have the required competences of their personnel. So the key role of these non-for-profit organizations, I would highlight like the most important thing, how to improve the promotional activities and companies' access to information, to new information services, and especially for efficiency in resource use. The way that my previous speaker was talking about this circular economy approaches. Then, of course, if we are focusing on this manufacturing sector that I'm coming from, the cost effectiveness, of course, of the production solutions. So they are able to reduce the energy usage because they will have the shorter production cycles, and therefore the benefits of the more efficient production things, also covered with the economical reasons. Then they have a possibilities to show the triple win tool, so they would like post it as a green image company, then sustainable supply of inputs, and of course reduce longer run production and service delivery cost. Then access to the skilled people and access to the research institutions to help to develop and test the products and technologies. Okay, this is just a short, I don't know, highlights where or how do we support our members. For example, Tecos is a representative of Slovenia together with other European region and is leading this new thematic area, production performance and monitoring systems. So it is all connected more or less to Industry 4.0, but also in this directive, the greenness is very important. So especially with the energy efficient production lines. And also we are expanding the networks on the global level, so to source the trends of this tooling sector and to transfer it to our members. So we are a representative in Slovenia for the ISTMA association, and ISTMA is a very large member association that covers around 8,000 companies. And of course, we have the specific position to establish the domestic and foreign networks that enable us really a good overview of the latest trends. Okay, just for the end, I would like introduce two best practice examples actually of how in our sector, for example, they are approaching to circular economy, more specifically the efficiency of the waste sources transforming into the secondary resources because as Peter actually introduced it, it is very important. The sources are in decretion, and we have to create the new circular approaches. So to have, I don't know, another added value products at the end of the line. I would represent the Bakua and Citrus Pack. Those are the projects that were really funded within the program of LIFE. What it's termed to Bakua is actually tackling the circular economy approach for transforming the wastes from banana plantation crops. So to transform it into natural fibers, for example, for reinforced composites. So you see we're tackling the plastic industry, the automotive sector, and in another line, the residual pulp is also used for antioxidant extractions, which will at the end of the line serve as a supplement in the production of fish diets for aquaculture. So we are tackling three different kind of sectors. So I think it's very important this interconnectivity of cross-sectoral collaboration. So in this way, they can efficiently affect the green growth economy. The second one is citrus pack. It's more or less similar because we are using the citrus peels, not only from oranges, but also for clementines and lemons. And we are using this waste material for extraction of fibers, also for reinforcing purposes, for producing the packages for juices. And these packages will be at the end totally 100% biodegradable. And also in another line, we are producing the cosmetic packaging. And this cosmetic packaging, the creams will be newly produced, and the ingredients in these creams, it will also come from this waste source. So we are extracting the antioxidant sources and then put it in the way of peeling effect. So with these projects, we are again opening the opportunities for new value chains for food sector, for packaging sector, for a cosmetic sector. So in this way, we are like closing the loop with waste transforming sources into new products with hopefully higher added value at the end. I think I'm at the end. Okay, I'm like repeating myself, but where we see the possibilities of how to impact on the industry directions towards the greenest is also the Erasmus program, for example, because they are offering new possibilities to effectively impact the laborers, the workers, the new skills qualified personnel for industry, and many of the new e-learning contents was already developed and showed as an effective. In this particular projects, we are focused in putting the knowledge about the processing of biopolymers in forward towards the industry, so they will have the capacities to learn how to transform this kind of materials, for example, for their possible use in the future. Yes, that's my end. I would like to thank you all for listening to me. I was probably too long, but
Thank you, Vesna. I think that the last slides that you presented, they highlight a role perhaps for the NGOs to which we didn't think until now, besides the fact that NGOs can facilitate the access to R&D and to new technical solutions to companies. They can be real spaces of experimentation for all type of actors. I mean, for public authorities coming together with companies, coming together with citizens to see what kind of solutions they can develop to exploit opportunities of green growth. And I think this is rather interesting from a social innovation viewpoint, and hopefully we'll debate it afterwards. But before doing that, and because we've tackled and we've discussed about companies and the role of, especially of large companies in promoting a logic of cooperation, of partnership to promote green growth, we left at the end two examples, two case studies of two large companies and the way they decided to promote a logic of partnership and networking to advance the topic of green growth. And I'll pass the floor to Ilaria from San Pellegrino to share with us what is their approach on green growth and how this topic changed the way they're acting on the market.
Okay, thank you so much. It was very interesting to listen to the perspective and ideas, especially about citrus pack. I want to discuss it with you about that. My name is Ilaria Lenzi, and I'm in charge of creating shared value for San Pellegrino Group. That is the Italian market of Nestlé Waters. So it's Nestlé Waters Italy. San Pellegrino has a long story. It's an Italian company created in 1899, so a few years ago. And we manage 9 sources, water sources in Italy. So we have 9 mineral concessions to manage mineral waters that are a particular kind of water. You know, they are protected waters. So the law that regulates this sector is very strict, and we used to say that we cultivate water instead of producing. This is just to say that it's not just a raw material resource for us. It's something more, and I will try to explain why and how. And we produce sparkling fruit beverages that come from 100% Italian citruses. So all our raw material, or all the materials we use are Italian. And so we are a champion of the Made in Italy. Probably all of you know San Pellegrino water and so on, or Aranciata San Pellegrino, even if we are not owned by Italians. I mean, even if we are part of a large group. We work in a difficult sector from an environmental point of view. You have this slide, no, that one. That is not a slide, it's an infographic that shows our process, our production process, that come, as we say, from the source to the table. We are not circular yet. I mean, we have some difficulties in closing the circle. So the next step will be closing the circle. And so not going to individual citizens and families, but going beyond to start again, you know, with the circle. Because of 3 main impacts we have from an environmental point of view that is strictly connected to communities too. The first one is, the easiest one, is the impact of our plants. So our bottling plants have to protect the water resources using technological innovation to bottle all the water we get out from the source. So the goal is 1 liter to 1 liter. Now we are at 1 liter for 1.06 liters that come from the source. It's still too much, even if it's a best practice, an international best practice, is the figure related to our new plant that was opened last year, and we are working to take all our plants to that standard. At the same time, we are working for energy efficiency in our plants, and now we are buying 100% of energy coming from renewables, but we have to improve the rate of auto production of energy. So we would like to go to a zero energy boat from external sources. We would like to produce and reuse all the energy inside our plants, and we are working to do that. So reducing the impact of the plant, it's hard, it needs investment, it needs technologies, but we know how to do it. It's something we can do on our own. We are having a lot of benchmarking. We have international standards to follow. We have to manage goals as a strict plan, but we are going towards that goal. We have set some international standards and goals. We are following the international guidelines. I'm quite sure we will reach the right goal in a few years. We have a 2020 approach to our goals, as a lot of other companies and the European Union too. The second part that is harder to be reached is about bottling, so the packaging materials. We use PET, so a large part of our water is bottled in plastic. We know the topics about plastic. We know the impact of plastic. We are investing a lot in research. We have an international alliance with Danone. So we are the 2 largest water companies in the world. So we are working together with a lot of institutional partners and with startups and NGOs to create new options. And we have a goal to reach 100% renewable plastic to be used for bottling food and water. I mean, it's a problem of the things you have to bottle inside, you know? So we are working a lot in that field. Now we are experimenting and piloting different kinds of packaging. We are using RPET, so recycle RPET for food use in the 25% of the Nestlé Vera bottles, and we are using the 30% of bio-PET in Levissima. That is another brand. We have products. This is important, but it's important to invest in research too, because as we have seen, the problem is the strength of the material. So we have to protect the water, and the material we bottle our water in is very crucial to protect the resource that's inside. So we know that glass is sometimes more polluting than plastic. We know that the solution is bioplastic, but bioplastic now is not sustainable and is not effective for all the production we have to do. So we are investing in research. And this is the first point I would like to underline. We need partnership. And things like in huge problems like bottling, like packaging topics, we need research, we need institution, we need to partner with other companies. There's no competition in that kind of things. It's cooperation, and this is the direction we have to take. The third point is how we assure a sustainable logistics. And it's one of the things I would like to focus on today, because I think we have some good practices in it. We are piloting, we are experimenting, and I would like to share with you some of these practices. We have some pillars of sustainable logistics. These are 5, but the most important ones are 3. I mean, the first one is closer to clients and customer. So making the production closer to the final user of the product. The second pillar is using more rail. And I really don't know the European context. I'm quite focused on Italy, but in Italy it's very difficult to make things going around the country on using the rail. So the wheel is still very strong, and reinforcing the rail system for the transportation and logistics is crucial, and it's something we need to partner with institutions, because this is one of the main goals. We are at the 41%, but there's a lot of work to do. And the third aspect is when we fail in negotiating with the institution to reinforce this kind of transportation, investing in new technologies to reduce the impact of the other kind of transport we have. So just some example about that. The first one is Castrocelo. Castrocelo is a new plant I was talking to you about. Is called Fonte Nature. It's close to here, and it's near Frosinone. It's near Rome. And the idea here is piloting in Italy the multi-source model. I mean, we have one brand that is Nestlé Vera that is bottled. Water is bottled coming from 3 different sources in 3 different parts of Italy. Which are the advantages of this kind of model? We get closer to the sources. So almost the goal is having all the transportations under 200 kilometers from the source to the family, I mean, to the house of the final customer. So it's not to the client, it's to the customer. And the second goal is valorizing local sources, because doing that, we create value for the territory we are working with. So the multi-source model is quite a strong investment for us, but it's a good example of green growth. It's growth because it's a way to reinforce our business and to reinforce the brand, conquering new markets, because normally the waters are very strong, close to the territory they are in, you know, and it's natural and good. I mean, that way we have a national brand that can be diffused on the whole country, but it's perceived by the customer as close to them because they know the sources the water comes from. But they have the assurance of quality of a national and international brand like Nestlé Vera. The second effect is a consistent reduction in CO2 emissions, but at the same time, it's something very efficient from an economic point of view, because reducing the cost of logistics is convenient for the company. So it's share value in that sense. I mean, it's something that creates a positive impact for us, for the company, and a positive impact for all stakeholders. What we need to do that, we need to partner with our client customers, and not only with consumers, and we need to partner with our logistic chain, because it's not easy for a large company to change the flows of its logistics. We need new agreements, because everything is changing. If you put different points in your territory, and everything changes, your sales force, the partner with the different clients, and it's a complete revolution in the way we take the water to the people. But it's worth doing that kind of things, and it's a model that we're exporting. I mean, it's a practice that Nestlé Water is taking to other countries, to say closer is better, even for a large company like we are. Okay? The second point is rail transport first. The way we have to push on rail, on trains, is partnering with our clients. Kamst is one of the largest restoration and catering group in Italy. They take Nestlé Vera, they have as a unique water they distribute in their network, and now the 100% of the water distributed to this client, this customer, is provided by train. And it's a partnership with the client. We decided that the price could go higher to reach a common goal. So everything is more, this is not efficient from a strictly economical point of view, but it's a choice, a strategic choice, both from us and for the client. And we decided to do that, to push a good practice, and we hope this will be communicated in the right way, just to take a point that Mr. Caroli, Professor Caroli underlined at the beginning, you know, marketing. How do we communicate these things to people? And the idea is we will let know our customers that we are doing this extra effort to take a cleanest product to your table. I'm not sure it's working. We don't have figures about a positive effect on sales, but it's something we believe in, so we're going on with that. The third thing that is radical, but it's very nice, I think, it's going for zero diesel. We want to be a zero diesel company. Why? Because we have to protect our sources and our territories. And diesel has a negative impact on local environment and not only on CO2 emissions. So if we have to protect our territory, we have to reduce the pollution coming from the diesel. So what we are doing is investing in LNG, liquefied natural gas, that is the less polluting fossil fuel that is sustainable at the moment. And in this case too, we have to invest on partnership, because what we are doing is making partnership with our logistics. So the owners of the companies that provide this kind of service are helped in a partnership relation to change the fleet, to progressively change their trucks, and to buy LNG trucks. At the same time, we know that this works only if we have the infrastructures. So we are working to provide the service station to make the fuel inside that kind of trucks and to improve this kind of mechanism. What's good is that our suppliers are very happy because the return on the investment on this renewal of the fleet is very, very convenient for them too. They are conquering new customers, new clients. They are enlarging their business because if they have this kind of modern trucks, they are chosen by other companies too. So it's a real positive effect on the relationship between SMEs, I mean small companies and big companies. When we partner that way, the advantages are very clear to the small company too. So these are the examples, the things we are trying to do. These are not enough. We have to go on working, and we have to go on working together with the others, because if not, we will not save the world. That's all.
Thank you, Ilaria. So I think in your presentation, the partnership has been a key issue. So I will highlight the fact that you mentioned that we need partnerships with other large companies, especially for research projects. We need new type of partnerships to make the connection with the territory, because green growth involves a relocalization of activities in most of the cases, like Peter was saying also. So we need to see how we work with this type of local actors, but we also need new type of partnerships with suppliers and with clients to identify win-win situations for both of them. Yeah. So I'll pass the floor to IBM to see what is their perspective on green growth, and if this topic rearranged a little bit their business model. And kindly invite you.
Okay, thank you. How many hours do I have for my intervention? 10 hours, okay. No, I will try to be shorter than that. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to stay here, and I want to comment on this topic, that is, what is the perspective of large companies on green growth. Now, we are focused on growth for sure, no discussion, but what about green growth? Well, here I think that the first thing is consider that if the market goes green, the companies go green. No thing. And because we are large companies, somebody before was saying, we are driving the market to be appreciating green. So it's a sort of circular loop in this case. There is a virtual loop that once it's started, nobody can stop it. Now, looking inside IBM, I try to put together not a theory, not a strategy, but the facts that are happening in our company, even recently, and put them in order. And say, what are we doing really on green? And I found out around three main topics. The first one is reduce environmental impact in our operations, so lead by example, let's say. Focus on research, and I'm happy to share later on with Ms. Lenzi some interesting points on this. And catch overall the green opportunity directly in the market in our daily operations, following our customers, as I was saying. So first, reduce environmental impact from company operations. Clearly, the first thing is to stand up and say, we are green, okay? And this can be very trendy, like under Obama presidency, could be a little bit less trendy in the current presidency, but it's important to show out that we are supporting this kind of vision. And here you're finding that IBM is reaffirming also in this, let's say, not so favorable situation inside the US that we are still on the page of the program for Paris, of the Paris Agreement. But more than saying, okay, we are on the same page, we want to see if we are really achieving and leading by example. And I just found out a recent press release of June of this year saying that 4 years ahead, we achieved the goals of efficiency we were targeting for ourselves recently. This is overall reduction of CO2 emissions, but it's also focusing on which kind of energy we want to use. It's more renewable than traditional sources and so on. And the third point on this perspective is to network, be part of groups of interest that are pushing in this direction, because this helps our brand, green brand, but also help us to converge our operations in something that is effective. Now, behind these things, let me just give you a couple of examples of what means this directly for the operations. The first one is that production. When we are doing production of our microchips, we need a lot of pure fresh water, extremely pure. And the process to get that is extremely costly. Now, a lot of energy to produce this, a lot of waste of heat, of water, and so on. Redesigning the plants so that the infrastructure, the services, water, heat, energy, and so on, are working in a combination. This means that we are more competitive in the market. So it's not just to follow the brand, it's not just a marketing aspect. It's vital for us to be more effective, and by chance, we will be more green if we are more effective. And this, I think, is a common topic for many, many companies. So highlight that being more efficient in many times means also being more green. Another example, on the distribution side, on the sales side, if we have people in our offices that have a single room for each, and these people are going around to meet customers, those rooms are empty. So redesigning the concept of the office, saying that our offices are just meeting points. You go in the office when you need to meet your colleagues, you need to work as a team, and then on the rest of your daily life, working life, you're outside meeting customers, traveling, working from home with a laptop and so on. You don't need a huge space in your offices. You can reduce it by 1, 2 factor times. And this is the trend that we are applying to our offices. So the reduction, the efficiency comes from better efficiency of our processes. The second point is focus on research. As IBM, we have a tradition of really high productivity in our research. We are a top technology company. We push a lot on research for our direct business, but when you enter in research, you research 360 degrees, not only for what is present for us. And I was happy to find out by coincidence this recent press release of 1 year ago, where our research labs in Almaden found out a new way to produce plastic biodegradable, avoiding some presence of heavy metals in the process that makes the plastic from bio sources not so friendly. So in this direction, we are not inventing nothing, we are optimizing a process going towards a more affordable and usable way of doing plastic from organic materials. So that could be maybe a point of discussion for us later on. But in a more wider perspective, that was just one example of how research can help and how we are helping. A more structural way of putting research as a service of a community that in this case is working on green topics is to work on our core business. And our core business is providing IT infrastructure. IT infrastructure, as all the other processes, has a lot of waste capacity. And the idea is to put this waste capacity available for the research community. So what we have done since many years now, and I was also one of the volunteers of this program, is what we call the World Community Grid. Means that with a central software, we are able to connect all the mobile devices, the laptops, the PCs, the mainframes of the companies, and use the spare amount of capacity or calculation capacity of storage, whatever, to build up a virtual, powerful supercomputer that can host transactional and parallel computational power for research purposes. And this is a program that has been relaunched on a green perspective recently. I think just in September it was closed, the submission of proposals to work on projects that we value something like $200 million totally, between the capacity that we put in place, the cloud services, the weather forecasting and weather data that you can access to, and so on, to support topics like the analysis on draining bases, migration of people and animals, improving crops, cultivation, and so on. The third dimension is how we daily use our operations in a green perspective to do business every day. And here I selected two announcements that I think are very interesting from our perspective. I don't know how you will perceive them, but from my perspective are very, very interesting. We announced last year we bought the weather company. Now, IBM, who knows IBM closely, has a tradition to be always very focused on their core business. Building software, building computers, providing services around this. Now, why buying a company that provides data on weather? Because this is key and is strategic on all the green topics. When we talk about renewables, the weather forecast is key. And I think in this movement, there is the best example on how a company that is paying attention to the green issues can catch an opportunity to make business from what will be key in the future. Another thing that has been announced early this year, I was very close to this, is a spin-off of the research division that was taking care about energy in a new company that is called Utopus Insights, that is a joint venture between this spin-off from IBM and a local distribution company, distribution and transmission company from the Vermont, Velco company, so that we join the efforts, the capabilities from research of IBM, the knowledge of the energy industry from the Velco company, to put inside the market a new company that will be building algorithms, advanced algorithms, to manage the complexity of grids, or smart grids, once the renewables, the electric vehicles, the electric mobility, and so on, will be highly penetrating the real world. So these are the three dimensions. Now, just to make this more close to our environment here in Italy, I added also some examples, very few examples, very quick, about projects that we are doing here in Italy, or we have done in Italy, that are in the interconnection between research and operations. Because at the end, research for us is the first step of doing business daily with our customers. So the first thing is that smart cities, somebody was mentioning smart cities, is the environment where most of the green topics will find application. And here you will find that we have done in Italy basically 4 different research projects in the area of infrastructure, on energy, on water, on smart transportation, and on smart healthcare. I don't have the time to go in deep detail on all of them, just to give you a glance of what we are talking about. Energy. We made a project that had the goal to treat the electricity and energy dimension of a town from a holistic point of view, considering all the main factors that are affected by electricity. The streets, the buildings, the public environment, and of course the infrastructure itself. Now, if you look at this, the normal way a city is managed today is this one, but in the future, when all the buildings, let's say in a visionary perspective will have renewables on top of their roofs, how this can change and how can be managed in a so complex environment. So this was the goal of the project. We provided, let's say, the intelligence at the control room for a city level, but also at a neighborhood level to control and actually facilitate the effectiveness of renewables inside the town. This was a research project, but the follow-ups are that we replicated the outcomes of this project in a couple of experiences in different towns, in Bari and in Brescia, and we used the same results, software results, to open new scenarios and new dimensions in the town management, like, for example, security. Okay, so research project, but entry point for a new business for us. Second example, water. Water, not only as a product, but also as a way to reduce energy consumption in the distribution around the towns. We made another project in Naples where we are focused on making districts out of the town network, water network, in order to minimize losses and to produce electricity from the different pressure of the regions of the town. Sorry, I was skipping too fast. Yeah. Just to say, this project was following up from a former product that is now off the shelf, presented to the market, and done also this in partnership with Veolia, that is one of the most relevant players worldwide. Third example, smart living. Sorry, I was going in the wrong direction. Okay, Bolzano, we made a pilot there to assist elder people in their daily life through technology. So instrumenting the houses, taking care of the environmental parameters, and through that monitor if the life of these people is normal or there are some problems. This is a way to facilitate and go also to the social impact of keeping the environment safe. This was a prototype, let's say, a few years ago. It's interesting that now the town of Bolzano asked us to improve this and put it in production for a certain number of cases where this seems to be very interesting. This is just showing the architecture. We put sensors inside the house to control if there are gas leakages, if there is use of water, what is the temperature in the environment, and so on, because through that we can understand if the old people are doing a normal life or not. Okay, I hope it was not too long. I'm sorry it was very summary of the experience, but just to give you a flavor of where we are moving. It's not clearly one single strategy, it's not the focus, but if you focus it, you realize that nowadays really green growth is a driver that is pervasive in the company's operations.
Thank you, Mr. Drago. I particularly appreciated in your presentation, besides all the efforts that you're doing as company, the fact that trying to integrate green growth in your operations means to try to have an involvement also at the political level and get involved in international alliances that promote, for example, Paris Agreement, but also new strategic business alliances that are necessary to valorize these opportunities. I think we've heard at least 4, because the 5th representative is away, but 4 very interesting presentation and examples of how green growth triggers a reshape of the actions of different actors, and a key common element of each of the presentation was the fact that we need to work together in different ways. Yeah, so businesses with public authorities with local territories, with NGOs, with research bodies, etc. I would be interested, and I think our dear guests also, if there are comments or questions from the public.
Hi. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you. Excellent presentations. I would like to focus more on the company part. I am a company that we are always business oriented, and we are also on the green growth thing. The big companies, it's true, as you said, that they drive the market. And big companies have the advantage that they can invest money on green technologies, on transport, on plastic recyclables. But Ms. Lenzi here has a more difficult task because you are on the food industry. So apart from the sections that you have to fight with money, you can invest, you have the food and safety regulations. How do you tackle with this? How do you face the European regulations that for the moment say that recyclables are not the same? They don't have the same quality, they don't have the same odor, or they have different things that you proved, I'm sure that you proved, that they have the same composition, chemical composition. I know Danone, for example, your company that you collaborate, has committed themselves to put in the middle layer of the plastic cups of the yogurts, to put recyclable plastic. But in the water, I think you will have huge problems with the public, first of all, and then also with the European Commission. How do you tackle with all these problems?
Okay. Of course, we have to respect the law. So the percentages I gave you for the percentage of recycled plastic and bio-PET inside the PET is based on our technical department evaluation because of reasons of protection and safety and quality, but at the same time, it's a limit that the law is imposing to us at the moment. We can't use more than 25% of recycled plastic in PET for eating and drinking, you know. So this is one of the limits we have. And the second hard limit is about communication, because we are forced to communicate some informations that maybe are not so relevant or readable for our customers, but we can't say other things that would be very useful. Just to give you an example, how to take the label off to recycle in different way, because each municipalities have different rules. So we put on the package a clear message, please remember to recycle this bottle because this bottle is 100% PET and PET is 100% recyclable. But at the same time, we can't give tools and instruction, precise instruction to our customers on how to manage recycling, because the rules are very different. We can't help them with all the different rules that are on the market. So there are two aspects: technical limits that are imposed by the law, and at the same time communication limits to our people. We have, just to give you an example, one of our competitors in Italy, that is Sant'Anna, 2 years ago, was taken into the tribunal. I mean, it was took in judgment because of a bottle that was 100% organic. But the problem was that if you have this kind of bottle, and if people put this bottle in the plastic recycle bin, this can create problems, and they were judged because they were not clear enough in explaining that the destination was organic, and they had to pay to solve this problem, and this bottle is not on the market anymore, even if it was a bio bottle, 100% bio bottle. It was something like a pilot experience. The numbers were very small, but if this experiment had been successful, maybe now there would be much more companies working on that field. But our regulatory says, no, don't do things like that because they are dangerous from a low point of view. So we are not allowed to make pilots, experiments, and maybe errors sometimes in communication that would help. I'm sure there's, of course, safety comes first. So the safety of our people and the guarantee of quality that the law has to impose, it's crucial. I'm not discussing that it's very important to have strict rules in the food and beverage sector, but at the same time, it would be great if we could have incentives for innovation more than limitations. This is a sincere answer. It's not the, yeah, it's what we really think.
Can I comment on this? And maybe I can include also the other speakers in the question. One of the problems that we tackle in the Sinji project is the communication between our modulars and also between the other projects that are in the like horizontal projects. You told before that the key word is synergies and partnerships between the big companies. Each of the big companies has its R&D department, and I'm pretty sure that if you collaborated more, then the results will be completely different. Okay, but you have limitations. You are international companies, you cannot disclose. How do you work on this communication between those two? How do you share example? Do you share best practices? Do you share research? Do you share results with other companies?
I go? Okay, I start. There are two different aspects. From one side, there are alliances at a global level that help us communicating with other companies of the same sector. So if institutions and NGOs, for example, launch an alliance for water stewardship, just to give you a concrete example, within the alliance, Nestlé is aside with Danone, is aside with all the other companies. So there's a strong role that international opinion leader and international institution can play in getting us together and involving us in collective actions that can help the communication among the companies and to share the investments. Because we are big, but resources are not unlimited, you know? So putting together resources is the key. So this is one way. In Italy, or at a national level, there's a role that has to be played by consortium and business association to push this kind of movement. There are some alliances, just for example, ASVIS, that is an alliance for sustainable development in Italy, is pushing a lot on business initiatives, so to put companies together to engage them in collective action. The same thing is done by the Global Compact Italian network, that is the national branch of the Global Compact. So there are associations doing that, but in my view, at this time, they are still too focused on sustainability. So the origin is the sustainability movement, is the sustainability associations, that is very good, but at the same time, if the business association, so Confindustria and the consortia among different companies, the sector, categories and so on, will push a little bit more on this topic. It would be very useful to put us together and make us go.
Just a comment on research. I think that in the last decades, we had a really big transformation on how we conceive research inside the company. Before it was, you know, some people, strange people working somewhere in the moon and doing something that was completely out of any control. Then we moved, I was mentioned before, the Utopus Insight company. That is the new model, shared research with other companies, complementing the skills of the two companies, and eventually coming out with a physical or formal agreement, or a company or a business to develop together. Even the third step is what we call here now in Italy since a couple of years, research as a service. So your company need to do something in a certain direction. We put available for you as an offer, as a service, our research capabilities to do something very specific on your side. And this is, I think it's not only a reason of business, but it's also connected with the protection of IP rights. IP rights are really critical for every company. IBM is leading since I think 1 decade the number of patents submitted every year. So we are very careful about this and trying to be separating what is our internal IP rights with what is done for the customers, for themselves. So the research organization and the research approach goes on and evolves in this direction also for this reason.
To pass the word to Peter, because you were mentioning beforehand that so GPP, Green Public Procurement, is a key tool that public authorities they have to promote green growth on the market, but it's also very challenging because it involves to be bold, to have courage, to reinvent the way that you're making acquisitions, and you have been developing a network, Procura Plus, that you were telling us about for quite some years. How important it was the fact that you put the public authorities to work together, like the research institutions are doing, in order to make this topic advance? Has it been useful or not? Or what are the tools that you're using as network?
Yeah, indeed, when Procura Plus, this European network, was founded, the idea was to create a movement of cities, the two green public procurement, and that they give a strong signal to the market to show that that's what we want for our citizens, because public procurement in the end it's about creating value. It's about taxpayers' money being spent, and eventually the politics should be about caring about the quality of life of citizens, and that's what it is about. So in this case, when we started like 15, 20 years ago, the market was not that ready, but now a lot changed. For instance, if you talk about nowadays becoming a green company, it's much easier also for cities. If you think like public lighting, how much did cities all around Europe save through LED? Amazing. I just have this example, one in a small municipality in Copenhagen, where the procurer told me they used to spend 10 million for public lighting. Now they spend only 1 million because they have LED, they have less lampposts in the streets, and they have this directed technology that only when someone passes by it turns on. Obviously, these are opportunities that didn't exist, and the same in many other ways. And now it's all about vehicles, or also in the terms of textiles, you find a lot biodegradable products. All this didn't exist, and now it's much easier for a company to become green, and easier then again for the public authorities to purchase products. What is sometimes an issue, what we see, is rather that instead of thinking like a sustainable solutions, the focus is on the product. That's sometimes a problem. I give an example, for instance, in mobility. If you say the public fleet in a city, you just replace the cars from diesel to electric cars, you still have the cars there. You still occupy space, but it doesn't really mean that it's a sustainable solution to get from one place to the other. This type of thinking and this circular economy. But through this network, where we meet once a year and every 3 years in a bigger conference, this really helps to make authorities, you know, for instance, authority from Denmark, with Italy, with the Spanish, big cities, small cities. For instance, the next conference seminar we have in Oslo in March, 21st March. So there it's really about the procurers coming together and getting inspired each other. You know, how did you in the city solve this problem? How did you move forward? What is your good practice? What can be the criteria? How is the market? Because it doesn't make sense it's also from a legal perspective critical if you are too ambitious, and then eventually the market doesn't meet the reality, your demand. But then by slowly increasing the criteria, obviously the market can also prepare, and therefore a key aspect that we always see in all this in our network, Procura Plus, and you find it online, procuraplus.org, is to sound out the market and to engage with the market as early as possible in order to prepare the stakeholders. Obviously, legally speaking, you cannot just go to one company and say, that's what we would like to have, please deliver. But it's really like to meet all the stakeholders, to be open, to not discriminate, and then to prepare. I like very much this example that I researched in Switzerland. It was about they wanted a specific desk lamp in all the public authorities. And it should be very energy efficient. It should comply with the Minergie standard there. So what they did, they invited all manufacturers around, and they said, look, this is the lamp. It should be even electrosmog was one point, but it should be dismantleable, not glued. It should be high energy efficient, etc. So they told them, look, we will do a tender on this. So all the companies could put in, so I think 28 put in a tender, so already a new lamp was on the market, won. It was really a highly energy efficient, a lamp that was not on the market yet. And eventually, obviously, this who won was anyway lucky because, in Switzerland, there are all the Swiss banks, etc. They also bought the floor lamps. But eventually, a new product, very energy efficient, very green, entered the market. So in that sense, but also about the two companies, I think this is I really salute your efforts. Because 2 days ago, as I said, I organized this conference in Leuven, and as you may know, in Leuven is the biggest beer brewery, Stella Artois, in the world. So we visited it, and many of their actions remind me of yours. Obviously, you have a difficult topic because you have a common good, and some cities, for instance, they even ban plastic bottles. So in order to be sustainable, and in order to grow, you have to sell water. But I think it's still, and I remember we also had currently the Commission is revising all the food criteria in sustainable food production. And I remember obviously the stakeholder group of the water sector was quite outspoken, about using tap water or bottled water and all this. So it's a very important discussion. And about IBM, I was involved in all the smart cities developments. Whoever was involved there were the so-called Sherpas, and I think there as well, I see now, the discourse, when there are these big conferences with the Commission on smart cities, that the main, one of the key words now is really citizens focus, because everybody, especially politicians, are now scared to talk too much about technology, because there have been cases where the citizens really felt like, okay, everything is communicating, my fridge with my car and my mobile phone but where am I in all this? And there were cities who invested a lot. For instance, there was one city, without naming it, they had a check-in, check-out system in the bus, and the people didn't get it. So these are these things. So this citizens' involvement is really key in this, so that they feel the ownership.
Other comments from Golbo? Thanks.
Thank you very much for all the very interesting presentations. So I don't know how many questions I can ask, but let's begin with one. Yeah, okay. I just want to discuss about this thing from the manufacturing point of view, okay? Because I know that there are several initiatives and let's say programs at European level to promote the green manufacturing and adoption of green manufacturing technologies, sustainable manufacturing technologies, especially by SMEs. Because as we talked, I think large companies don't have so many big problems in this regard. They have money to invest on this and all this stuff. That the problem is for SMEs, that how they want to deal with this. But what we see is that SMEs have challenges to do this, to go forward with green manufacturing and adoption of green manufacturing technologies. Although there are initiatives to support them, from European level. There is the circular economy package, there is Inspire, there is especially something like SME initiatives, COSME, all this kind of stuff to support SMEs. But still there are, there are something in the middle that maybe, I don't know, I just want to ask that what would be some leverages, in your opinion, that could facilitate this communication, this process, because at one point maybe SMEs don't have really an easy access to these service offerings and to these, let's say, instruments that are there. Maybe they're not even aware of that. So is there a way to facilitate this in the innovation ecosystem of Europe?
Thank you, Golbo. Perhaps we start with Vesna, if you'd like to comment, because you're working directly with SMEs.
Thank you very much for good questions. Well, yes, it is a problem with SMEs. We see it from the cluster perspective. If they are not pushed by the law or legislation, they will not go green. Or if they are not pushed by their clients, decision makers, okay, you will use biomaterial for sure for these products, then they will, of course, use it, adapted their production lines to that source. But if there is no pressure for them, they will not, of course, invest many financial resources to recompose the production lines, even though it is just the changing of the material. When they see the prices, they refused to having a green imagine or whatever. But in any way, they are very interesting. I think more and more every year, because we have this annual many meetings with them, and they are always participating in discussions in the green thematic events. They are really following the trends, but I think the critical point is if this will not be the law for a ban, for example, the plastic bags, they will still produce it. For example, in France, in Italy, they banned the plastic bags, but in Slovenia, they are still producing, and as long as the law will not exist to ban it, it will be continued. So I think it's very important to push also from the public governmental perspective to the economy. Also that, yeah.
My view is that technology is pushing these things, of course. It cannot be different. I would be working for another company. No, but apart from joking, but in many cases, SMEs are part of an ecosystem for large companies. Okay, so see a large company as a system integrator of many players in the market. There are small companies, niche players, giving components to the overall solution. Now, Industry 4.0 is a way the market is pushing. It's not talking about green, but the market is pushing for a more strong interconnection of the businesses, of the operations, of the logistics, and so on, through the power of the technology in order to achieve better performances, more productivity, and so on. So, as I said before, blockchain is another technology. It's emerging that I'm sure will be interconnecting businesses much in a more strong way. So, as I said at the beginning, I think that more than thinking how green solutions or green perspective can bring a growth is how the growth that in any case will come out with technology can be seen in a green perspective, inverting the factors. Because in many cases it's natural, in other cases just paying attention to the green aspect to address properly what is in any case coming and so on. But technology for clear is pushing in this direction.
Yes, I just wanted to share one example from one of our Procura Plus participants, and it's the region of Brussels, Brussels capital. Because in terms of circular economy, you know, I opened up that it's a buzzword. And indeed, last time I organized a conference in Brussels on circular economy, there were like 4 happening the same day. And what I usually regret is you hear always like the same sort of stories, what can happen, what can be recycled. And I think it's all about implementation as usual. And what I liked, for instance, then I was recently at a conference organized by the Brussels Capital Region. And I think this is something that can also help small and medium-sized enterprises, because in their case, the conference was about assessing what happened in terms of their circular economy strategy in the last 12 months. How they did it, they structured it according to buildings, according to trade and commerce, manufacturing and tourism. And then for me what was interesting is that, so they really had a policy and a strategy. And they calculated with the consultancy and research institutes how much value would bring, for instance, the procurement then to the local businesses, the small, medium-sized enterprises. And that I found interesting, you know, in the building sector, how much material can be reutilized, which companies can really then engage, smaller or larger, in all the different aspects. And the same for procurement, for instance, about the food, how much food, and in terms also of food waste, what can be done within the region, because I think this is a good size to work with small and medium-sized enterprises in order to set up a strategy and implement, because as I said, usually it really requires a new way of thinking. Do I still manufacture and produce products where materials come in one side and waste goes out in the other? Or how could I make that they really circulate and I don't have waste? Why could I produce also products that eventually at the end of the life cycle, this product can be used for another use, this cradle-to-cradle thinking. So it's about new ways of thinking and opening up and bringing in innovation. And obviously technology, IT technology can play a big role in this sustainability aspect. So it can lead to sustainability and the other way around. But I think coming back to your question, it's really this, here it would be the Città Metropolitana, for instance, level, or in other areas it's the region, the larger it. This can be, I think, good geographical entities, also in terms of governance, where a strong strategy could help to support small and medium-sized enterprises apart from the large one, and to keep the value then inside. Otherwise it can sometimes be that then anyway the profit and all goes outside the country, and then it's not so much reinvested at the local or regional level.
I think we have time for last question or comment before, so we have one, Sergio, and also Ioannis.
Yes, well, I would like to first to congratulate for your presentations. They were very interesting, and I have a couple of questions. The first one is related with the fact that the main driver at the end is the economical drivers, both from the side of I'm reducing the cost of production, or I'm increasing the sales because I'm just putting this kind of eco labels, and so my sales are being increased. So at the end, the driver for investing in green growth is economical driver for the companies. But how, and in relation to what Ms. Lenzi explained before, that your problems to communicate, do you think that a project such as PEFMED that is intending to have a kind of objective eco-label to the products will be positive for the food sector? And apart from that, another question for all of you: what do you think about the organization impact footprint? So we have the product environmental footprint for the products, but we also have the organization environmental footprint for the organizations. What do you think about that? If you think that is positive? And final consideration is, short consideration, Anna. It's like a good initiative that we are carrying out in Spain is a benchmarking, a territorial and sectorial benchmarking between different companies that are producing the same kind of products. So then we have an average environmental impact of these companies, and each company receives their own environmental impact. So they are placed over the average or below the average. So they know that they have to invest to be more competitive in their sector. We cannot compare Spanish companies with the Danish companies because it's not coherent to compare that. But in relation with the organization environmental footprint, this is well, a good consideration. What do you think about that?
Oof, a lot of questions. Thank you, Sergio. We start from Ilaria? Okay. I will answer to the first one because it was for me. The figures we have about consumers, because we are listening a lot, as you can imagine, to our consumers. They say, the figures are different, but I just give you the last ones. They say that more than a half of Italian people declare they are keen to pay a premium price for a product that make them more responsible. So not for a responsible product, but for a product that helps them being more responsible in their daily life. The same people, and this percentage is 70% for millennials, so it's increasing a lot. At the same time, the same people says that they don't think that companies are giving them the tools to be more responsible. They don't have the right information that help them understand what is true and what is not, and they lack of independent assurance that to help them make the right choices. So this is the answer to your question. I mean, we need labels that must be independent, third party. They have to be difficult to be obtained, but they don't have to be too many. Because if we have a proliferation of labels, because we have labels for everything, and if we have so many labels, consumers can't understand which are the serious ones or the not serious ones, and nothing will change. But an eco-label, I mean, a European label that is being recognized, can be a key. Yeah. To make people understand what's happening.
I think that the PEFMED project is just aiming to have that, and the PEF methodology is the one that has been promoted by European Union, European Commission. So I think that this is the main goal. Yeah, you are right.
The answer is yes.
The role of organization impacting the green impact. Organizational footprint. I was thinking to a reasonable answer, and I don't have it. I'm sorry. No, I was thinking and making this consideration. I was talking before about how we are organizing in a different way our work for the sales force, reducing the space of the offices. Behind that, there is clearly a different organization, and the idea that people can maybe work from home, reduce mobility, and also be more with a reduced footprint. But what I experienced personally going around is that people that is not working from home, but it's working from the car. So at the end, the organization is something that cannot directly be driving, I think, a green footprint. What you need to track is very closely how we can minimize the footprint from the different scenarios that change very quickly. And by the way, organizations today are really very, very fast evolving. So it's difficult to have a strategy of an organization in perspective of the green footprint, I think.
Dimitri, yeah.
Last question, I hope. So thank you very much for your input. I would like to know if, for IBM mainly, which are the raw materials that you are using mainly, and if you are following any initiative on recycling them or participating in any scheme or a framework that is willing to recycle them, or I don't know, I'm thinking about this. I mean, your raw materials, your main raw materials, they are plastics, they are metals.
The main raw material is human labor.
It's recycled.
No, meaning that we are moving to more a service company, software company than a hardware company. I honestly, I've never been in a plant working for the hardware division, so I don't have a direct experience on that. For sure, I heard, I've been involved as a consumer, as a user, on a very careful collection of the old material to be recycled as much as possible. But I'm afraid I cannot answer. I'm not aware about this. It's not my job.
Thank you. And thank you for all the questions and comments. I think we could easily continue like this for the entire day because it's a very broad and challenging topic. So what are the networks and tools that we can activate to make the green growth, this exotic buzz word or ex-buzz word, advance? We didn't have too much the chance to focus on the Mediterranean area, which is a little bit the focus of our community, because as I was anticipating to you by email, practically within Sinji we are trying to build a community of modular projects that are financed by Interreg Med, who are developing and testing different type of tools, of approaches related to the green growth sector, and that of course at one point after would like to bring them on the market and try to see what are the leverages that they can use to make those tools successful. And I think that we came up with interesting ideas from this roundtable. We have seen the role of large companies that are working with their suppliers in a way, the role of public authorities that besides being a regulator, they can also be a good incentiver for the small and medium companies on the market. And I think, as I was saying beforehand, a key transversal issue that came out of this is the fact that we will need to work in partnership, in synergies, because it's a very challenging and new topic from all viewpoints, from technological one, from social one. And hopefully we'll have the chance to meet again with this community a little bit later on, once also the tools on which they're working are more advanced, so that we can show you how you can make use of them. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for having participated to it, and thanks to our very nice and kind panel for having accepted our invitation to be here with us. And we'll keep in touch. And as next step for the modular and horizontal representatives, we will start a closed session, but we won't do it in this room. We will move to Conti room for 2 hours of exchange related to our community, to the green growth community. Okay, thank you and have a nice day within the Forum Compra Verde.
It would be nice if what do you want to do?